maybe just to put a bug in your ear, and this isn't something if we could figure out how much protein is appropriate for different people in the different stages. Right now, we go based on needs, right? Based upon their GFR, their age, their weight, maybe ideal body weight, their activity level. But then it's easier to do a ketogenic diet, I think, for most people if you can have a higher protein. So you struggle with where's not enough and where's too much.
Right.
At some point, if we could identify that, and of course, it's individualized to every person.
Yeah, so that topic's really interesting. One is that humans are a little different than the rodent models in that you need to really control the protein intake on rodents in order to get them to have really high BHB levels. If you start to go a little too high in the protein, it just kind of like shuts off the ketogenic effect. But that's for the mice. We use a 15% protein diet. For the rats, we found that the best diet is around 9% protein. So Cheney, Eduardo Cheney's group, they had a paper where they showed that methionine was sufficient to drive cystogenesis on its own. So they were showing that if you just have a PKD animal and you give them excess methionine, you exacerbate the disease. And so methionine is an essential amino acid. You need it to do every protein. You need methionine, but there seems to be some pathways that methionine is involved with that are part of this methylation signaling pathway, and that seems to be part of probably why it does this particular phenotype. And so when it comes to like animal plant protein, that would be like one of the explanations for why when they've done experiments in the past where they gave soy protein, it improved the PKD phenotype. One of the explanations would be it's lower in methionine, and soy also inhibits protein digestion on its own. So unless you're using like a protein isolate, you actually would decrease the amount of protein being broken down. So I think that's where a lot of the idea behind like protein restriction being beneficial comes in. But then it's like all in context. So if you're in this high inflammatory state versus build muscle, for instance, like say you're doing strength training, well, a lot of those amino acids that you eat are going to be partitioned into muscle. They're not going to just be broken down and turned into free amino acids that the kidney has to experience and deal with. They're going to get used somewhere. So the idea of nutrient partitioning is really important in that you don't just eat and eat and eat, and it's all based off of like what you're doing. If you're just sitting all day, you don't need to eat tons of oatmeal and other high carb foods because you're not doing any activity, you're just sitting.
Not doing anything with them. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it would be the same thing with protein. If you just eat excess protein, if you're not using it, then yeah, your body's going to have to excrete it because it doesn't have a very good capacity to store it except in muscle tissue. So if you're not doing strength training and things that are demanding amino acids, then you end up just not using it and you're not getting anything there. That's like a big part of the equation is it's all just, are you doing this? Then you need more amino acids. But if you're not doing as much, then you can reduce the amount.
That's where I think too that personalization is super important. Somebody looking at what are you doing? Are you using it? Like you said, are you sitting there? What's your lifestyle? Where is it coming from sometimes? So yes, I mean, and again, plant-focused ketogenic versus not plant-focused. And I think like you said, we'll hear more about that in the future for certain.
Yeah, I don't know if you use whey protein for the renewed, do you have people that use that?
We don't have to. So they get an average protein, and honestly, an average, again, depending on where their GFR is, because they're coming in from 25 to 100 plus as far as their GFR and their activity. But I would say to you an average protein intake based upon an average, probably 80 plus grams, depending on where they are. And most of them are coming in underweight because they've been restricting for so long. So it's not a severe restriction. And then even then, sometimes where, I tend to be modest in the beginning. And then as I'm following them through the program, I'll tend to like add more because you can see that they need more as they go along. But again, it's really activity dependent and what their lifestyle is like as a whole, I feel. But what we said in the beginning isn't necessarily what they're at. Although not everyone is as active either as you'd, think sometimes. So
Yeah. Yeah, the activity is definitely going to dictate the protein needs for sure.
Good.
So you're saying that people are around 80 grams, but that's per, I mean, basically you're saying
kilogram usually. So normally we go, and again, there's other factors besides just their GFR, but normally I usually start at about 1 gram per kilogram. And then I mean, I've gone all the way up to 1.5 grams per kilogram. If they're working out regularly, they're working out hard, we go up and then we adjust accordingly. So I don't know if there's really an average because everyone's different based on weight and activity level, but it's not like a 0.4, 0.6,
yeah,
you know, animal or protein restriction. I mean, it's definitely not that.
Yeah, I think if you wanted to be really rigorous about it, you'd probably have to do like a DEXA scan and get people's lean body mass, figure out the lean body mass and calculate it all based off of that if you were trying to be really specific about it. And I think that's probably a more accurate way. What you're saying is people's body composition is going to dictate their protein requirement. You might see two individuals about 200 pounds, but if one is 35, 40% body fat and the other one's 15%, then of course you're going to have this huge difference in protein requirement. So you can calculate it based off of lean body mass. There are calculators out there for that as well. And so it's probably something to consider if you're doing any of this stuff.